The Empathising-Systemising Theory. This is an article by Simon Baron-Cohen from The Guardian, Thursday 17th of April 2003. Are there essential differences between the male and female brain? My theory is that the female brain is predominantly hardwired for empathy, and that the male brain is predominantly hardwired for understanding and building systems. I call it the Empathising-Systemising Theory. Empathising is the drive to identify another person's emotions and thoughts, and to respond to these with an appropriate emotion. The empathiser intuitively figures out how people are feeling and how to treat people with care and sensitivity. Systemising is the drive to analyse and explore a system, to extract underlying rules that govern the behaviour of a system, and the drive to construct systems. The systemiser intuitively figures out how things work or what the underlying rules are controlling a system. Systems can be varied as a pond, a vehicle, a computer, a maths equation, or even an army unit. They all operate on inputs and deliver outputs using rules. According to this theory, a person, whether male or female, has a particular brain type. There are three common brain types. For some individuals, empathising is stronger than systemising. This is called the female brain, or a brain of type E. For other individuals, systemising is stronger than empathising. This is called the male brain, or a brain type of S. Yet other individuals are equally strong in their systemising and empathising. This is called the balanced brain, or a brain of type B. There are now tests you can take to see which type E, S or B you are. Not which type you'd like to be, but which you actually are. A key feature of this theory is that your sex cannot tell you which type of brain you have. Not all men have male brains, and not all women have the female brain. The central claim of this new theory is only that on average, more males than females have a brain type of S, and more females than males have a brain type of E. So are females better at empathising? This theory rings true at an anecdotal level. For example, we've always known that people choose different things to read in the newsagent, on the railway platform, or in the airport department lounge. Women are more likely to go to the magazine rack featuring fashion, romance, beauty, intimacy, emotional problems, and agony aunt's counselling, relationship advice, and parenting. Men are more likely to go to a magazine rack featuring computers, cars, boats, photography, DIY, sport, hi-fi, action, guns, tools, and the outdoors. And we all have anecdotal impressions about typical hobbies for men and women. Men are more likely to spend hours happily engaged in a car or motorbike maintenance, a light aircraft piloting, sailing, bird or train spotting, mathematics, tweaking their sound system, computer games, and programming. Women are more likely to spend hours happily engaged in coffee mornings or potluck suppers, advising friends on relationship problems, or caring for friends, neighbours or pets. But the ES theory goes beyond such anecdotal evidence to pull together the scientific evidence and investigate the origins of these differences. The evidence for a female advantage in empathising comes from many different directions. For example, studies show that when children play together with a little movie player that has only one eyepiece, boys tend to get more of their fair share of looking down the eyepiece. They just shoulder the girls out of the way. Less empathy, more self-centred. Or if you leave out a bunch of those big plastic cars that kids like to ride on, what you see is that more little boys play the ramming game. They deliberately drive the vehicle into another child. The girls ride around more carefully, avoiding the other children more often. This suggests the girls are being more sensitive to others. Baby girls, as young as 12 months old, respond more empathically to the distress of other people, showing greater concern through more sad looks, sympathetic vocalizations and comforting. This echoes what you find in adulthood. More women report frequently sharing the emotional distress of their friends. Women also spend more time comforting people. When asked to judge when someone might have said something potentially hurtful, girls score higher from at least 7 years old. Women are also more sensitive to facial expressions. They are better at decoding non-verbal communication, picking up subtle nuances from tone of voice or facial expression, or judging a person's character. There is also a sex difference in aggression. Males tend to show far more direct aggression, such as pushing, hitting and punching. Females tend to show more indirect or relational covert aggression. This includes gossip, exclusion and bitchy remarks. It could be said that to punch someone in the face or to wound them physically requires an even lower level of empathy than a verbal snipe. 2 other ways to reveal a person's empathizing skill are to see how they, as a newcomer, join a group of strangers, and to see how they, as a host, react to a new person joining their group. This has been cleverly investigated in children by introducing a new boy or girl to a group already playing together. If the newcomer is female, she is more likely to stand and watch for a while to check out what's going on and then try to fit in with the ongoing activity. This usually leads to the newcomer being readily accepted into the group. If the newcomer is a boy, he is more likely to hijack the game by trying to change it, directing everyone's attention onto him. And even by the age of 6, girls are better at being a host. They are more attentive to the newcomer. Boys often just ignore the newcomer's attempt to join in. They are more likely to carry on with what they were already doing. How early are such sex differences in empathy evident? Certainly by 12 months girls make more eye contact than boys. But a new study carried out in my lab at university shows that at birth girls look longer at a face and boys look longer at a suspended mechanical mobile. Furthermore, the Cambridge team found that how much eye contact children make is part determined by a biological factor, prenatal testosterone, and this has been demonstrated by measuring this hormone in amniotic fluid. This all adds up to a large amount of evidence for a female advantage in empathizing, with at least some biological determinants. What about the claimed male advantage in systemizing? Boys from toddlerhood onwards are more interested in cars, trucks, planes and guns and swords, building blocks, constructional toys and mechanical toys. Systems. They like to put things together to build toy towers or towns or vehicles. Boys also enjoy playing with toys that have clear functions, buttons to press, things that will light up or devices that will cause another object to move. You see the same sort of pattern in the adult workplace. Some occupations are almost entirely male. Think of metalworking, weapon making, craft making instruments or the construction industry, such as boat building. The focus of these occupations is on constructing systems, to professions such as maths, physics and engineering, which require high systemizing disciplines. Some psychological tests also show the male advantage in systemizing. For example, in the mental rotation test you are shown 2 shapes and asked if one is a rotation or a mirror image of the other. Males are quicker and more accurate on this test. Reading maps has been used as another test of systemizing. Men can learn a route in fewer trials just from looking at a map, correctly recalling more detail about direction and distance. If you ask boys to make a map of an area that they have only visited once, their maps are more accurate layout of the features in the environment, e.g. showing which landmark is southeast of another. If you ask people to put together a 3D mechanical apparatus in an assembly task, on average men score higher. Boys are also better at constructing block buildings from 2D blueprints. These are constructional systems, and in Nick Hornby's novel High Fidelity, the male protagonist is obsessed with his record collection and works in a second-hand record shop catering for almost all male customers searching for that one missing item in their collection of music. Collections of albums or anything else are often highly systematic in nature. The male preference for focusing on systems again is evident very early. Our Cambridge study found that at 1 year old, little boys showed a stronger preference to watch a film of cars, mechanical systems, than a film of person's face with a lot of emotional expression. Little girls also showed the opposite preference, and 1 day old little boys look for longer at a mechanical mobile. We of course know that with time, culture and socialization do play a role in determining a male brain, stronger interest in systems, or female brain where they've got stronger interest in empathy. But these studies also suggest that biology also partly determines this. Some of the most convincing evidence for biological causes comes from studies of the effects of hormones. There was a time when women were prescribed a synthetic female hormone in an attempt to prevent repeated spontaneous miscarriages. Boys born to such women are likely to show far more female-typical empathizing brains, such as caring for dolls. And if a female rat is injected at birth with testosterone, she shows faster, more accurate maze learning compared with a female rat who has not been given such an injection. Some important lessons have been learned from studies of clinical conditions. Male babies born with IHH have very small testes and therefore low levels of testosterone, and they are worse at spatial aspects of systemizing relative to normal males. Other male babies born with androgen insensitivity are also worse at systemizing. Compare these with female babies with CAH who have high levels of androgens and who have enhanced spatial systemizing. But even if you leave aside these clinical conditions, there is evidence for the effects of hormones on the mind in the typical child. Our study found that toddlers who have had low fetal testosterone had higher levels of eye contact. Presumably eye contact may have something to do with sociability and empathizing. And a group of Canadian researchers found that the higher your prenatal testosterone, the better you do on the mental rotation as a systemizing test. Should a theory like this be a cause of concern? Some people may worry that this is suggesting one sex is better than the other, but a moment's reflection should allay this fear. The theory is saying that on average males and females differ in what they are drawn to and what they find easy, but that both sexes have their strengths and their weaknesses. Neither sex is superior overall. Others may worry that a theory like this stereotypes the sexes, but we need to distinguish stereotyping from the study of sex differences. The study simply looks at males and females as two groups and asks why on average differences are seen. There is no harm in that, and even some important scientific advantages that can come out of it. Stereotyping, on the other hand, is when a character of a group is assumed to apply to an individual, and this is potentially discriminating and harmful. The ES theory does not stereotype. Rather, it seeks to explain why individuals are typical or atypical for their sex. What are the potential new insights for a theory like this? It may help us to understand the child's neurological conditions of autism and Asperger's syndrome, which appear to be an extreme of the male brain. Such individuals may have impairments in empathizing alongside normal or even talented systemizing. The theory also predicts the existence of the mirror image of autism or Asperger's, namely the extreme female brain. Science has not even begun to investigate that such people are like, but we know that they must have impairments in systemizing, alongside normal or even talented empathizing. Finally, the theory delineates two key dimensions of individual differences, empathising and systemising, that exist among any group of children so that parents and educators can become far more tolerant of difference. Is there an explanation for autism? I argue that people with autism may have an extreme of the male brain, good at systemising, very bad at empathising, and that studying autism with ES theory in mind can help increase our understanding of the condition. Two largest subgroups of autism are classic autism and Asperger's syndrome. Both share certain features: a difficulty in developing social relationships, a difficulty in communication, the presence of unusually strong narrow interests, and a strong adherence to routines. They differ in that classic autism, the person might have an IQ at any point on the scale, even in the learning disabled range, and the person invariably had a language delay as a toddler. In Asperger's syndrome, the person is always at least average in IQ and may well be above average, and talked on time as a toddler. Autism spectrum conditions affect about one child in every 200, with males being far more likely to be diagnosed. What's interesting is that the obsessional interests that people with autism spectrum conditions show often focus on a system. It may be an intense preoccupation with light switches in the house, or running water from taps in different sinks in the house. For their long-suffering parents, these obsessions can be very hard to cope. But according to the ES theory, the child may simply be focusing on the tiny details in the system, how fast the water flows when the tap is turned to different angles, or which lights go on when different switches are in the top or the down position, using their intelligence to work out the underlying rules that govern the system. The characteristic approach that they take is to home into a topic or area of knowledge and comb it for every detail until they feel they've covered most of it, if not all of the information available. The obsession might last weeks, months, or even years, and then typically they move on to a new area to master. Some parents and teachers will indulge the child so that the child can follow their obsessional interests all the way, and just sometimes this can lead to a greater achievement of the development of the expertise. Other parents or teachers, with good reason, feel a need to interrupt the child's obsessional focus. But the ES theory sees individuals with autism spectrum conditions as having a learning style that prefers depth over breadth and accuracy or exactness over gist. So much for their strong systemising. What about their impaired empathising? This is the area that is likely to lead them into trouble or to leave them disabled. Difficulty empathising translates into a whole set of hurdles. You might be last person to get the point of a joke, which can leave you feeling like an outsider. You might end up saying something that another person finds hurtful or offensive, when that was the last thing you intended. You might misinterpret other people's actions and motives. You might just not pick up on how others see you and hence not know how you come across as odd or different. People's sincerity or subtle emotions may just go straight over your head. Such difficulties can lead a child with autism or Asperger's syndrome being neglected or even ostracised by their peer group, or worse, teased and bullied. Tragically, such bullying often goes undetected by teachers and even parents, so that the child suffers in silence at school for years and years. During the teens, this difficulty in fitting into a peer group can lead the person with Asperger's syndrome to become depressed. No wonder educators are now urgently waking up to the existence of Asperger's syndrome, since if it can be better recognised, many of these secondary difficulties might be avoided. And the hope is that a better understanding of such conditions, the extreme male brain, may lead teachers to be more tolerant of their very different learning styles which children possess. If nurtured, systemising is not only a valuable contribution, but can even result in a refreshingly original way of thinking and seeing the world. Simon Baron-Cohen is the director of the Autism Research Centre, Cambridge University, and his new book, The Essential Difference, Men, Women and the Extreme Male Brain, will be published by Penguin on May the 1st.